Welcome to my channel. Click on the little red button to subscribe to my channel and click on that little bell notification icon to be notified. What are some not safe for work history facts that do not get taught in schools? Every year it was Pharaoh's solemn duty to go to the banks of the Nile, disrobe, and masturbate. A great many other men would follow him, and when the Pharaoh was done, they too would bash out on the banks. Further, it was believed that the Pharaoh had to be sure that as great of an amount of this gentleman's relish as possible landed in the river itself rather than on the land, in order to guarantee a good future harvest. Peter the Great scoured the Russian Empire in search of dwarfs and giants in an effort to breed a race of each. Which he couldn't find enough giants, he found many dwarfs. He would bake a huge pie and have dwarfs get naked and wait inside it to jump out and scare guests. In addition to using them as regular stewards and servants and such, that was the tip of Peter's crazy. Royal family members had people witness them having sex so they could confirm the legitimacy of the heir. John F. Kennedy was dating Miss Denmark in the 1940s, and when they stayed at the Sumter House in Charleston, the FBI bugged their room because they thought she might be a Nazi spy. Turns out they didn't hear a lot of conversations, but instead a lot of not safe for work time. Tapes in the Library of Congress for those interested. John Harvey Kellogg, one of the Kellogg brothers who invented breakfast cereal, advocated for sewing silver wire through the boys' foreskin to prevent them from masturbating. Strange fellow. When Marie Antoinette was imprisoned by the French citizens, they took her kids. Then they had her older son raped by prostitutes so that he would contract their STDs. They then tried to use this as a grounds to try her for abusing her children. The accusations went nowhere, so the poor kid was given a ton of cereal disease for nothing. In 1928, the United Fruit Company from Louisiana, had a banana plantation in Colombia, and the workers organized a strike against them. They demanded written contracts, 8-hour work days, 6 days a week, and the elimination of food coupons. The strike was one of the biggest strikes in Colombian history, and many communistic and liberal parties participated. U.S. officials in Colombia, along with United Fruit representatives, portrayed the workers' strike as communist with subversive tendency. In telegrams to U.S. Secretary of Government, the United States of America threatening to invade with the U.S. Marine Corps if the Colombian government did not act to protect United Fruit's interests. An unknown number of workers died after the conservative government of Miguel Mendez sent the Colombian army to end the Union. An army regiment from Bogota was dispatched by the government to deal with the strikes, which it deemed to be subversive. Whether these troops were sent in at the behest of the United Fruit Company did not clearly emerge. The troops set up their machine guns on the roofs of the low buildings at the corners of the main square, closed off the access streets after a 5-minute warning, opened fire in a dense Sunday crowd of workers, and the wives and children had gathered after Sunday Mass to wait for an anticipated address from the governor. General Cortez Vargas, who commanded the troops during the massacre, took responsibility for 47 casualties. In reality, the exact number of casualties have never been confirmed. Herrera Soto, co-author of the comprehensive and detailed study of the 1928 strike, has put together various estimates given by contemporaries and historians ranging from 47 to as high as 2,000. Survivors, popular oral histories, and written documents give figures around 800 to 3,000 killed, adding that the killers threw them into the sea. The dresses and corsets worn by women in the court of King Louis XIV were so cumbersome and difficult to get out that the women would often take a dump in the hallways of the Versailles Palace during grand balls. The mornings after, the corners of hallway in the palace would have piles of crap stacked up that the servants would have to clean up. French President Félix Faure died getting a blowjob from his mistress. I wish his thread had its own sub. I would read it every day. Thomas Granger was the first juvenile to be executed in what would become the United States of America. He was convicted of burglary with a mare, a cow, 2 goats, several sheep, 2 calves, and a turkey, and hung in September 1642. Pancho Villa and his buddies would go through cities and they would kidnap the cute ladies and they would never be seen again. In preparation for this, the ladies would go to the mud and appear to be very filthy, so they wouldn't be taken away. They took my grandmother's aunt. In addition to all the hijinks Columbus got up to, and years later he ran a sex slave business from the New World. He remarked in a letter to a friend that 9-year-old girls were particularly a hot item with the nobility of Europe. Egyptians also had a priestess called the God's Wife, whose job was to perform sex acts on a statue of a deity. George Washington was a total poon hound. He once got transferred to a remote base because all the other officers' wives wanted to bone him. In early Japan, high-class Japanese often had men/boys on the other side they would use for pleasure. It wasn't seen as gay or wrong because that concept hadn't been imported from the West yet. They were considered mistress and were usually well taken care of. Lyndon Johnson was known for pulling out his pecker during meeting. The Welsh would often go to England to steal sheep. This was punishable by death, so when they were caught, they would often say they wanted to sleep with the sheep, which was not punishable by death. Johnny Appleseeds didn't go around planting apple seeds just because. He sold the trees to the settlers, and they just used apples to make booze. Tasty apples are a mutation, and apple trees used to make edible apples don't come from the seeds. They come from grafting other tasty apple trees. I'm stealing this because it was so good. Apparently, during the writing of the Declaration, Bank Friendly would sneak off at lunch. Someone would always go fetch him, and they would always find him in the middle of the room, surrounded by naked women. The US had a eugenics program in the 70s that sterilized thousands of women, mostly black/poor. They would do this under the guise of an emergency appendectomy post-birth. A woman gave birth to a rape baby and didn't know why she could never have children after. She was able to receive damages. Look up Buck vs. Bell. King Louis XIV, the Sun King, is responsible for high heels. He thought they made his ass look great. At Andrew Jackson's funeral, his pet parrot was removed because he would not stop cursing. Empress Tirra of the Byzantine Empire was a hooker and came to power by hooking up with the emperor of the time. I actually didn't know this until recently, but the corpse of Discovery only ate meat and had incredible constipation. One day they ate pills they named thunderclappers, which made them crap out everything immediately. But the pills had a lot of metal in them, so if you go out on the same trail as the corpse of Discovery with a metal detector, you can find the exact place Louis, Clark, and the rest of the corpse took the biggest crap of their lives. JFK cheated on his wife and was a super sex addict. Dude banged a lot of women, even saying if he doesn't have sex 3 times a day, he gets headaches. Savannah G.A. was only saved from Sherman's march to the sea because a former mistress of his lived in the city. She came to him begging for him to spare the city. She stayed the night. So yeah, I'd say that was the greatest use of the power of the vagina in American history. Everyone said hi to BuzzFeed interns, taking notes. When Edgar Allan Poe was 27, he married his 13-year-old cousin. When the first fleet brought the first convicts to start the colony that became Sydney, Australia, the men and women were segregated on different ships. When they were put ashore after months at sea, they started a party that took the guards 2 days to stop. The great story that caused me to get my degree in history. I guess I learned from my English teacher that while we were reading Hamlet today, that nuns would run the brothels to get the money for the church, where they scolded affairs. Kind of interesting. Your history teacher will probably not mention that Ben Franklin had a thing for older women. Total cougar hunter. Your history teacher will also probably mention that Ben Franklin was totally right. A lot of our advances in online video streaming was thanks to the porn industry. Pompeii had entirely too many bakeries and brothels. There was an American Nazi party prior to World War II that tried to stage a coup on the US government. Confessional booths were built by the church not for privacy but to prevent priests from having sex with young women and men. Catherine the Great had a secret sex salon full of furniture decorated with D's, spread eagle legs, and female mouths giving head, all tastefully embellished with a gold leaf. Gandhi conducted bizarre chastity experiments during which young boys and girls bathed and slept with each other but were punished for any sexual activity or talk. In Ireland during the Iron Age, The inauguration ceremony of a new leader involved the king to be publicly engaging in copulation with a white mare, which was Ethan. A college history professor had told us that Martin Luther King came up with the idea of salvation through faith alone. While spending an entire day in prayer, he got a boner in church. He thought, well, F me, if I can sin while deep in meditative prayer, maybe no one can avoid the sin, and the only thing saving us is our belief. I haven't been able to verify this on our own, however, so either I haven't found it online or he has just been BSing us. He was a very good professor otherwise, so I tend to believe him. The pyramids were constructed without hard hats or safety harnesses. They then delivered the stone used without proper aligning, that's their circle, or safety with cones. The ancient Greeks were super gay. I mean really mega super gay. Buzz Aldrin was the first person to pee on the moon.